Welcome to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough, the Parenting Through Challenges podcast. I am your host, Angie Grant. And well, this past week, I have heard time after time after time again, whether through clients that I was serving, posts on social media, emails in my inbox, this phrase, I messed up again. And when I hear those words, I can feel the pain that in the writer or in the speaker who said those words. I can feel how hard it is as a parent when we screw up. Our mind knows what to do. Our mind knows that we shouldn't yell at our kids, or we shouldn't call them names, or we shouldn't make them feel bad for doing whatever it is that they're doing. And yet, those words, those actions, those reactions happen again and again and again. And so, in this episode today, I want to chat about that to highlight why it happens, to talk about what we get to do about it, and to remind you that you're human and we will continue to screw up over and over and over again, even when we use the best regulation tools, even when we are so focused on doing the right things, we're still going to screw up because we're human and we react. And sometimes our nervous system, despite our best efforts, just isn't in the greatest place to handle what's coming at us. I know that myself this past week, I think that there's been something in the energy. I do follow the energy forecast and actually missed the normal broadcast that I usually listen to on Mondays about the energy forecast. And so, well, I could go back now and listen, I suppose, but it is the end of the week. But something tells me there was something in the energy this week because, like I said, it after the fourth person said, I messed up in my parenting this week, I thought, man, I need to record a podcast about that because I feel the same way. I um I earlier this week, I got short with my granddaughter. She's 4. She's new here in this world, and I was feeling irritated. And I didn't yell at her, but I said something to the effect of, I can't get my work done because you keep interrupting me. And so I said that, and it felt disgusting when it came out of my mouth. And then a few minutes later, so she took that feedback and was quietly flipping through her notebook and drawing things on the pages. And my fingers clicked on the keyboard. And she said, Grandma, I can't get my work done because you keep interrupting me. And her words, which were a direct reflection, an imitation of my words, hit me to my core. And, it got me thinking about, right, I talk about this a lot. We expect our kids to stop misbehaving, whatever we think that misbehavior is, so that we can keep our cool, as if somehow it was her fault that I was being irritated, as if somehow she was in control of my level of irritability. She's not. She's 4. Even if she was 14, she's still not in control of my level of irritability. She's just being her. And yes, of course, our kids can do things that drive us nuts, but we are in charge of that feeling of feeling nuts. We're in charge of how we handle that. When I heard her say those words, I stopped working. My work was definitely not more important than my connection with her. I stopped my working and said, Hey, when you're done working, I'd love to just sit and snuggle with you. And of course, she said, Okay, I need a minute, as she always does. And about 10 seconds later, she hopped over and sat with me. My point in saying this and sharing this story, because I know that losing our cool can be so much bigger than that, right? I made a comment, but oftentimes when we lose our cool with our kids, it's a much bigger deal. We say something mean to them. We say something hurtful. We yell at them, or our own parents' words come out of our mouth. But here's the reality, right? I think about this example with my granddaughter this past week. And as I was snuggling with her, I was thinking like, what the heck, Angie? Like, if I really needed to focus on work and I didn't want interruptions, it was up to me to proactively and peacefully and kindly say, hey, I'm gonna lock the door in the office. I'm gonna go help you find something to play with mom or dad or grandpa or your sister. I'm gonna go help you find something to play or help somebody to find somebody to help you. And I'm gonna work because I didn't create that boundary. I I didn't want to feel like a bad guy. I didn't want to hurt her feelings by saying she couldn't be in here, but I ended up hurting her feelings because she was in here and I wasn't nice to her. And this is how it goes, right? We don't create these boundaries and we don't take ownership of our own thoughts and feelings. And then we blame our kids or we blame our partner, we blame the barista at the coffee shop for how we're feeling, but it is never their fault. And so that's the first piece that I want to highlight today in this episode is about we are the only ones in control of our thoughts and feelings, nobody else. We tend to blame somebody else time and time and time again. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say, wow, I am so irritated right now. And I know 100% it is because of the thoughts that I have running and on loop in my head. People just don't say that. People say, I'm so irritated right now because this thing happened, or this circumstance is going on, or this person said whatever they said. We don't tend to take that full responsibility for what we're thinking and feeling. So that's the first part, right? We let other people drive us nuts. They don't drive us nuts, we let them. And that's up to us. And it's hard. It's really hard, right? It requires us to take full, and I mean full 100% responsibility for what we're thinking and feeling and how we're behaving. And I know some very responsible people, but I don't know if I've met anybody yet who takes 100% full responsibility, myself included, because it's not how we're raised. It's not how society conditions us. It's not even the energy that we've been living in for the past 400 years. For the past 400 years, we've been living in this energy that says that there's some outside authority that knows better than we do, instead of really listening to ourselves. So that's the first part is that mindset shift or reframe or reminder is that first part. The second part is about our nervous system. So our nervous system is holding on to a ridiculous amount of stories from when you were in the womb through your infancy, your toddlerhood, your childhood, those tricky adolescent and teenage years, your young adult years, and up until maybe even this morning. When your nervous system, when yourself encounters something that triggers a fear response in you, and it can be all kinds of things. It could be fear of being left alone, um, fear of feeling like you've lost power over what's happening in your life, fear that you're not lovable, fear that something bad might happen, right? These fears are held tightly as if they're the truth in our nervous system. And so your nervous system has created these neural pathways from itself to the rest of your brain. So when something happens in your life that reminds your nervous system of that fear, it jumps in and does what it's really good at, which is fight, flight, or freeze. Our nervous system is great at those reactions without even thinking about it. So, what do I mean by that? I mean, like, if when you were young, there were things that happened in your life that caused you to be afraid, caused you to feel like you were alone, caused you to question whether or not you were loved. Your nervous system is holding on to those stories. And then you fast forward 40 years later, 20 years later, 70 years later, however old you are, you fast forward and something seemingly unrelated happens in your life. I think about as I was reflecting on this example, right? I was working on prepping for a workshop that I have coming up, and I have unknowingly put a lot of my self-worth into this workshop, meaning I didn't want to, but I have tied my value into the success of this workshop. So then things have been popping up in me, in my story over the past few weeks as I've been creating my slides and doing marketing and creating a worksheet for parents to use during the workshop. And then I check my email and nobody has registered yet. And that lack of registrations in my inbox is causing me to question my value, causing me to be afraid that I'm not good enough. And my fear response in my brain is telling all kinds of stories like, see, this is evidence that you're not good enough, you're not capable, you're not whatever. This is what my nervous system is doing. Is I I know I shouldn't even bother checking my inbox, right? I know that. My cognitive mind knows that, right? Just keep working on the work and preparing and being ready for the lovely souls that are coming to my workshop. But then I check. I check out of fear, like, oh no, what if nobody signs up for this workshop? I've put so much heart into it. I'm so excited about it. I know that it can have an impact on families. And then I check and I see that nobody has signed up. And it then triggers my nervous system to old patterns that have been in there for decades about me questioning my value. It's triggering those in me, which is putting me in a heightened fight or flight response. And that's what I think happened, right? I was working on my workshop on my laptop, my granddaughter's sitting there. My fear response was in high gear and I wasn't even aware of it just because of my inbox in my email. And so she had a gazillion questions like 4-year-olds do. They're supposed to. It's their job to be curious and learn about the world. And she's a manifesting generator on top of it. She's curious. She wants to know. She wants to engage. And on top of that, her life's work, her core four in through the lens of human design are all in the G center or the center for lovability, which means that this little girl is here. Her life's work is about direction and lovability and being connected. It's so incredibly important to her. It's important to all of us, but it's part of her mission on this planet is to understand lovability. And so here's me doing my thing, working on this workshop, triggering my nervous system because of this way that I've tied my value to people registering for my workshop. And then she's asking me questions, simple, innocent questions. And I snapped at her. And I didn't mean to, I didn't want to. And I beat myself up for a minute about it. But then I'll talk about what I did afterwards. But this is why it's so ironic because the workshop is about, it's called regulated parenting. I'll be teaching parents how to not do what I did. Um, but the idea is that when our nervous system is activated, it is a quick neural pathway from your brain, your thoughts, and a pathway between your thoughts and your nervous system, that fight or flight part of your nervous system. And using tools like EFT tapping creates a new neural pathway, meaning I then, after that, tapped on, even though nobody's signed up for my workshop yet, I still trust that the right people will show up. I use that as my tapping phrase to help prepare me and my nervous system, not only for the workshop, but for my family, for the people that I love and care about, that my nervous system was reacting to them about something that had nothing to do with them. Because that's what's happening for many parents. When I think about the people who reached out to me specifically and the people who had, posted on social media, I imagine that the vast majority of them weren't reacting because of the person in front of them. When they said, I screwed up with my kid, I said the wrong thing, I blew up at them, said something awful to them, I can feel relatively confident that maybe their kid did something that triggered one of those fears that they were holding in their nervous system. That's a possibility, of course, but it's also highly likely that their nervous systems were just activated because of other things happening in life, other things happening at a much bigger level. And then our kids, our partners, our coworkers, the guy at the car wash end up being the victims to our reaction. So having tools like EFT tapping is a powerful way to regulate our nervous system. It does require us to have a bit of an awareness about what's going on with us because it's easy to think back to the first um, segment that I talked about. It's easy to think that it was the child's fault that I lost my cool. It's so easy to blame the other person. So it does require us to have that level of awareness to realize, like, oh, dang, I should not have reacted the way that I did. She's just being a curious 4-year old. Or to, one of the parents that reached out to me, their child is just being an adolescent. They're just being a human, doing human things, maybe not being 100% compliant to school or to, chores or whatever it might be, but they're just being human. And we blame our behaviors on them. And then the last part that I wanted to say about this is, I started by saying that we, even with the very best tools, even with the, best awareness, we're still going to screw up. And so the part that I want to make sure that I, have at the end of this or to wrap this up is the importance of repair. And repair isn't just about fixing that moment. When I think about the example with my granddaughter and, me saying to her, hey, I'd love to snuggle with you. I then, as I was snuggling with her, said that I am so sorry that I said those words. I was feeling irritated and I said those words to you, but it wasn't your fault. I and I reminded her that I love her no matter what, no matter how many questions she asks, no matter what she says, no matter what she does, my love for her never changes. Because I don't want her to take those moments as evidence that she's not lovable. I don't want those moments to sit in her nervous system. So when she's in her 20s or 30s or 40s or 70s, that things like her inbox are triggering her. I want to do my part to help her, help you, help your kids. I want to do my part to help avoid as many of those stories, those negative fear-based stories on our nervous system as possible. And so that repair is is incredibly powerful for that, right? Avoiding those stories settling in our kids' nervous systems is part of it. But the other part of it is showing our kids, showing them, not telling them. We're great at telling our kids what to do, but we oftentimes, when it comes to things like this, we're not so great at showing our kids how to repair. We're not so great at, or many of us are not so great at showing our kids about being humble and making mistakes. Yet we want our kids to be flexible and not become such perfectionists and to apologize and do all these things. But are we modeling that for our kids? When we lose our cool with our kids, are we modeling for them and saying, I'm so sorry that I yelled. It wasn't your fault. It's never your fault. That was me not taking care of me, and I'm working on that. That was me not being aware yet that my nervous system was triggered, and I took it out on you, and I'm so sorry. And I am working to avoid that happening in the future. I would encourage you to avoid using the word try When we say, I'm going to try to not do it again, well, trying isn't really doing. Trying is saying, you think you have a plan or you think you might give it a whirl, but if it gets hard, you're probably going to throw in the towel. At least that's what try means to me. Maybe it means something different to you, but to be honest with our kids, to own what to own our own actions, to take full responsibility for what we say, what we do, how we behave, and to show our kids we're not perfect, but we sure are determined to do our best to keep moving in a direction of being more and more compassionate, more empathetic, more curious about why we ourselves are misbehaving, and curious about what it is about our kids that triggers us. So it's okay if you've messed up. Again, we all do it. That never has to be the end of the story. When we mess up, we get to take full responsibility for our behaviors. We get to decide if we want to work on regulating our nervous system, and we get to show our kids how to repair. So I hope that you found this episode valuable to you. I know that it's something that I will continue to work on for the rest of my life and continue to support my clients with as well. If you're curious about how coaching can really change things for your life, I'd love to chat with you. I offer a free consult. It's called the Connection Clarity Call. And I go through an assessment there that you will find incredibly powerful to look at your parenting journey differently than perhaps you have before. So until next time, keep connecting and we will chat soon.